Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Fan Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 9th and 10th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline Comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish, they're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many, many independent comic book makers. Head on over to kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kilber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday night as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to That Silverline Show on Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim TK, and I'm joined, as always, by Jose Fuentes.
Hello.
David Rios.
Hello.
And a special guest, someone who Roland has described as good beans. Take that how you will. Dan Sehn.
How's it going?
And today we're going to be talking about Dan's career here, as well as a strange intersection that we both have, and what will probably make Jose even more terrified of the both of us. The intersection of going from the fitness world to the comics world.
That is true.
Yes. When I first met Jose in person, his first comment to me was, "Jesus, you're big."
Okay, hear me out. I see Tim on a screen, so you really can't gauge height and whatnot. And so when I saw, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna talk smack to Tim." It's like, "Oh," I walked up, I'm like, "Oh."
Casually.
You're a weightlifter or powerlifter or something, Tim?
Powerlifter and boxer.
Oh, powerlifter and boxer. Okay.
So big back, big wrist.
There you go.
Yeah.
And
light
on the feet.
Light on the feet, yeah. So never could quite get my calves to competition level, but I'm sure that's something you don't have a problem with since you yourself were a pro bodybuilder.
Yeah, well, in the drug-free bodybuilding,
yes,
they drug tested and everything. I was able to turn pro in that. I had done a little actually boxing way back, because one of the referees for the Ali fights, he had a boxing program in my neighborhood, and I went to that, and did like amateur wrestling in high school. Did martial arts in college, but ended up in the drug-free bodybuilding, being my thing that I settled into. And actually, before I was writing comics, I was writing for some of the bodybuilding and fitness publications.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Can you, where might people have read you in any of those, if they're in those spaces?
Mainly Muscle Training Illustrated,
Okay.
which was Dan Laurie's magazine. Dan Laurie was like I guess he started out with the Weeders, Joe Weeder and all them, and kind of branched out, running his own contest. And so he put out Muscle Training Illustrated. I was in New York at the time, actually on Long Island. I didn't even know Dan Laurie by the time I was writing it for that magazine, because he had sold the magazine, but he was actually in Long Island as well. So the person he sold the magazine to was in Long Island, Steve Raimondi, and then I started writing for him.
Very cool. Okay. Well, we'll get back to fitness here in a second. Once I finish up your introduction, I think we'll kind of move chronologically here, because I also have some theories on my own about the benefits coming from the fitness world or fitness mindset and going into creating comics, especially with comics' propensity for being muscle bound and kinetic. But you also just recently finished a couple Kickstarters in April, I believe.
Yeah, we did finish kind of back to back, because I don't do another Kickstarter until I'm fulfilling the one before it. So I was able to, most of the time I'll have the books completed, because I just don't want to leave people hanging once they, pledge.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
So the books are pretty much done. I tell people we're not going to ask you to invest in the comic if we're not willing to invest. So we're putting in the money for, the art, the colors, the letters, whatever is needed to be done. And that way, again, the book is done. Then we can ask you, we just need, well, we're going to try to recoup, what we can of that, but also printing and shipping costs. And that's where the Kickstarters come in.
Yeah, we do much the same model at Silverline. We kind of, our pitch is that it's not you're not funding a pipe dream, you're pre-ordering a comic, essentially. It's already done.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Very cool. And that was two here I see were Big House Blues and the Squad, and then the another one was Thunderzone, which was another 2 titles.
Yeah, Thunderzone. Okay, I originally was publishing as Argo Comics.
Yes.
Okay, and those are all my own characters, my own universe, everything like that. And then at some point, I wanted to do some projects that were outside of that universe. And at the time, I was approached by a couple of publishers who were kind of doing like an indie collective of different creators, but having the characters in one universe. Kind of like early Image Comics did, where, there was Wildstorm, there was Extreme, but they existed on the same Earth, and they, cross over whenever they wanted. I joined one of those that it kind of failed. I never even published anything with them. They went belly up before that. I went to another one, and pretty much the same. I never published with them, but I did like this idea of collaborating, and multiple voices all working together, instead of with Argo Comics, me being the main force in trying to publicize everything. So I started an imprint, Thunderzone, which is the Kickstarters you were just talking about, whereas I'll have other people's books, and I have some of my own, So it's like that early Image where we all have our own books, but we're able to share elements within those books and have those characters meet again as we see fit.
Okay. So between creating your own comics, creating crossovers, and now handling two companies, have you reached a point where you think you're busy enough, or do you think you're going to be adding on more titles to yourself in the next couple of years?
I am too busy, beyond busy. I'm definitely, overworked, but in a good way because it's comics. And who doesn't love comics, right? So, I mean, actually with Argo Comics, Argo 5 #1, I had drawn. Okay, so I wrote it, drew it, inked. I had it colored by someone else. I lettered. And I knew that if I was going to publish with any regularity, that big bulky job of doing the art was the one that would have to go. Mm-hmm. So that went, and but you're talking about being busy, writer. I have a letterer now, but sometimes I do some lettering. Editor, publisher, marketing. I mean, there's more than enough hats to wear. And Thunderzone actually has Thunderzone Studios, which I'm acting as co-writer and editor for other people who want to make a book who don't know how. So that becomes like we had a pro wrestler from Singapore, okay, going by the name of Meta. We made his book, Chronicles of the Metaverse, and we had another creator with a Dragon Manx. That was his book. Again, he had it like in paragraph form, so I was translating it into like, page 1, panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, doing all that. Made that book for him, and then we ran that as a Kickstarter with, back issues of the other Thunderzone books. We ran Dragon Manx and Chronicles of Metaversal. We did that as another as a Kickstarter. So yeah, this was the long answer to are you busy enough?
Absolutely. No, that's good. We like long answers. It chews up time. But hopefully tonight we can make your marketing a little more fun than it normally is and make it a little more engaging for you rather than just sending out social media posts to the void.
Sure.
Yeah. Speaking of marketing, if you are listening to this podcast on any podcast service around the world after the fact and you want to join into the conversation live, head on over to YouTube or Twitch/Silverline Comics and join in the conversation. Or go to silverlinecomics.com and buy yourself some merch. You can also look up Dan Sehn. His SEO is fantastic. Just type in him by name and you will find his results.
Or you can look up Argo Comics and the show's sponsor, Indie Planet. So Argo Comics, Indie Planet, and then you'll see the complete catalog over there.
Absolutely. And this is like, if you are a fan of a lot of classic cape-looking characters, there is a plethora to go through. So we'll get into kind of the backstory of yourself here, Dan. Going back in time, what for you came first as not necessarily in a creator or an involvement standpoint, but as a fan standpoint or something that you might be interested to get in? Comics or fitness? Were you, more so watching sports at an early age or reading comics, combination of the two?
Yeah, comics came first before I could even remember, before I was able to read. So reruns of the George Reeves Superman and Adam West Batman shows were on. And I guess my parents were buying me comics. I recall it was like sometimes it would be a thing that if I was quiet through mass in the church, we would get a comic after that. So, it goes, people will say, oh, okay, when did you start? And I'll be like, 3, 4. You know, it's like it's
Absolutely, yeah.
I can't remember the first comic. What was your first comic? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, yeah, started out with the comics. And again, the big two, as most of us start out with, because they're the most readily available.
Yeah.
And fitness came by later on, but as we know, reading superhero comics, they're all perfectly built.
Yes.
So it kind of gives you that ideal. And I do recall in 1979, Lou Ferrigno was on the cover of a muscle and fitness magazine as the Hulk. So as a comic fan, what's this Hulk? And then you look through it, and it's all people built like the comic books. And that kind of became the transition into bodybuilding or interest in bodybuilding.
I mean, very similarly, mine was reading early on X-Force and seeing how they drew Cable.
Yep.
And seeing like, I gotta get a chest like that. Definitely. So I find that, I don't know if it's we had the same experience when you were a pro in the zone, but when I was in powerlifting, I found that there was a strong cross-section of people who really enjoyed comics, D&D, nerd stuff, as well as the powerlifting stuff. There wasn't necessarily like the classic jock nerd division you get in a lot of high school dramas. It was, you'd be doing squats across from somebody and they're talking about how they're leveling up their leg stats.
Yeah, I did do D&D a little bit, I guess in junior high or so. I still have the original printing of Deities and Demigods.
Nice.
Which was, handbook used. And
That's awesome.
talking about indie comics, Bill Willingham started out at TSR and brought in one of my favorite indie comics, Elementals, from doing that art.
Oh yeah, definitely love Elementals.
There you go.
And until they, as we discussed before, until they started getting into their Elementals textbooks and stuff, or when they rebranded a lot of that stuff.
Right, got a little crazy.
After Bill Willingham basically kind of turned it over to and left Comico. So
yeah, I think at one point Mike Leake started drawing the book, and he was great. And actually, I had met them at conventions at that point, and have a pinup from Willingham of one of the Argo 5 characters, and the same with Leake, Mike Leake. And actually, when you mentioned Cable and Extreme, I was fortunate enough to get a few Rob Liefeld pinups as well.
Nice.
So, usually I'll go after my favorite artist.
Yeah.
From, especially when I was more heavily in the convention scene.
Sure.
And or through online commissions like Silverline's Cat and Mouse, the original series. Mitch Bird was a favorite of mine.
Yeah.
And I was actually able to, Roland has a ton of Mitch Bird work. I never met Mitch Bird, but I was able to get a pinup from him as well. So, you know how it is. We all have our favorite artist, and if you're lucky enough to get a commission from them, and especially if they'll say that you can use it as a cover or pinup,
Right.
that really makes the publishing rewarding.
Definitely. So, you kind of mentioned how you are sort of deeply into the comic scene as well, having multiple favorite artists and seeking out commissions and art specifically from them. You mentioned you were deeply in the convention scene at one point. What has the convention scene looked like for you? Did you go primarily as a fan, as a creator? Did you start as a fan and then become a creator, staying in the convention scene?
Yeah, initially I was going as a fan. I'm trying to think, but again, maybe like by 7th even in grade school, I was making my own characters, but I wasn't really getting commissions of those characters. But yeah, I guess by around 2000 or so, I guess I was starting to get like convention drawings of these characters that I was creating. And then eventually, 2006 put out a couple pinup books just to have the characters and their names published. And at that point, started getting tables at conventions. So I did, for a number of years doing conventions. I mean, being in Long Island, New York City Comic Con, when they first started up, I started getting a table there throughout a number of years. Later on, I had artist Bill Mouse, who created Nira X, part of the Zen Intergalactic Ninja book.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so he was doing my Sorority of Power comic and some other one-shots and stuff I was doing. So he was kind of like an artist working. I would have him at the table. He'd be handling more of the convention sketches and everything like that. And I had our line of Argo comics at the table as well. So that's predated Thunderzone.
Nice. Okay. So you kind of mentioned there having some one-shots as well, having your ongoing Argo line. When you first started off in the space, then did you have an idea of what your grand epic, your big line would be? Or were you like myself and several other creators where we have 20,000 ideas and you need to get them out and do a bunch of different short stories and one-offs?
Yeah, with Argo Comics, it started out just as my own. So I didn't have any creators really co-creating, even the visuals, because again, I was an artist myself. I would have all these concept sketches of the characters and their costumes and powers and everything like that. So when I would go to the conventions, I would have just printouts of these character designs, and I would explain the character to the artist, get a commission, and those again would become the pinups that would fill that 2006 pinup book.
Nice.
But yeah, this is the trade I have for Argo 5. So this collects issues 0 and then issues 1 through 5. So these were, again, the main characters that I was publishing. And you said, did I have a grand, epic in mind and anything like that? Really not. So I haven't had like a long ongoing storyline, but I did just send issue 45 to the printer.
Nice.
So, whether or not, and there's callbacks to previous issues. So it's not like it was planned to be a grand epic, but is what it, I guess, hopefully turned out to be.
I mean, that is kind of the dream, I guess, is to make something you're passionate about and accidentally stumble into longevity with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, 45 issues is, I think unusual in the comics that don't have a mainstream distribution.
Yeah.
Like I didn't go to Diamond with it or anything like that. And this predated Kickstarter, so print on demand, it's a long road.
Yeah.
And
Right.
You're a sponsor here, Kablam. That's about how long I've been with them. Since 2007, 2008. So that's all the issues of Argo 5 are, like I said, up over there on Indie Planet, their publishing arm.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are watching live or listening to us after the fact, head on over to Indie Planet. Again, look up Argo Comics, Argo 5. Get yourself a collection today. So taking a step back then to some theories that I've had a stronger history in boxing, or more recent at least. But I found being a creator, going from a fitness space to a comic space, you already kind of mentioned how you have the comic book to fitness pipeline of seeing, the Hulk, Superman, all these characters that have 12-pack abs and be like, maybe we should go to the gym. But I find that once you've, done that, if you go backwards, being able to understand the kinetics of how your body actually works and moves, particularly with combat sports, having that boxing background, allows me to add a lot of energy to fight scenes in books. Because I understand, how you're going to move, how you're going to counter, things like that. As a creator who also has a fitness background, do you have similar thoughts on that? And understanding body mechanics, how that applies to the characters you create?
Well, I do think as far as, like I said, I had that boxing myself. It was Arthur McCanty. He was the referee to, I know Ali Frazier, at least one of those fights, and a bunch of the Muhammad Ali fights. So he had that boxing program going into wrestling and then going into Kenpo karate. I think what helps, and probably for yourself as well, is that you might have someone whose script is just like so-and-so punches so-and-so, so-and-so punches so-and-so. Maybe, you got a martial arts hero, so-and-so kicks so-and-so. Whereas that knowledge of biomechanics or fighting does enable you to perhaps choreograph something that is a little beyond so-and-so punches so-and-so. As far as, I also have a degree in exercise science.
Yeah.
So in studying anatomy, physiology, kinesiology, you do tend to look at the art in a different way, but I don't think you have to be, like I said, I love the early image. They may not strive towards perfect anatomical structure. They may stretch things and, go a few extra deltoids or something on their shoulder.
Yeah.
And I think, there's artistic license. So, but I do think it helps sometimes if you're seeing something that's totally off, and then you say, it's, really you can't, this guy's rectus femoris is just out of whack. You gotta, we just gotta, I try not to get in the artist way too much, but again, just something if it's glaring, very few and far between, because again, I'm going to choose an artist whose samples I really am stoked about, and they're really not going to be at a level that they're going to really need anything from me. But yeah, I do think that being an artist and being in that fitness world does perhaps help you in laying out a good panel and a good composition for a page, whereas someone who's, again, not familiar with any of that, some things might be off. And sometimes the artist can just make up for that because it is a collaboration, and the artist, brings what he has to the table, and maybe he has the strengths if the writer is lacking.
Definitely. I guess then I'll take something that you posed there and bounce it up to our artists, Jose and David. When you see a script and it goes into more detail about the types of physicality you're seeing in a scene, is that something you guys appreciate or really think about? What's kind of your reaction? We see a description that says so-and-so punches so-and-so versus, so-and-so hits so-and-so with a left hook to the jaw.
I like it better if it's more descriptive. I mean, to me, that just makes more sense because, yeah, I mean, as an artist, if we're penciling something in, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, this guy punches this guy. Okay, well, you know what I mean? If you want a specific punch, say someone like, you want to draw somebody like Hadouken somebody, you know what I mean? You're gonna describe that and say, hey, yeah, this person's going to Hadouken somebody. You know what that is. If you play video games, you know that that's it's ginormous spinning uppercut. You know what I mean? So I prefer it to be a little more descriptive. You know what I mean? Like even when I'm describing stuff, or if you're specifically having a character practice a specific type of like fighting style or martial arts. You know what I mean? This particular martial arts is going to have a different style of fight than this other one. You know what I mean? Judo is a different fighting style than like I don't even know kung fu. You know what I mean? It's just I don't know. Those descriptors will help to decide which way you pose the body. I feel.
Well, with me, it's typically already on the page, so is the coloring part of it it's already there. So I just kind of take my keys off of, if it's a really defined, I start playing with light sources, maybe emphasize a little more of the ripples in the arms and stuff like that to kind of bring those out a little bit. Or in cases like Jose was mentioning with the Hadoukens and all that stuff, then you really get stuff where you can play around with the lights, and make casts, where the lights are reflecting on the muscles and stuff like that. So most of the stuff, like I said, though, by the time it gets to me, it's already out there on the page. So the penciler and inkers already had their way with it. So.
This is also another weird intersection that I guess will be kind of open table for responses on this one. But we've discussed in several of our art episodes the importance of drawing from reference. And even if you're not, drawing something one-to-one, just having the body pose up next to you or having the anatomy up can help. So it may not have been a picture of Dan, but have you guys looked at like pictures of bodybuilders to get like an idea of what muscle definition looks like when you're drawing something?
Absolutely. I have an entire folder on my computer of physical reference from like real skinny, like kind of nerdy looking skinny dudes to like full on like big bodybuilders, with no neck.
I always used to look at reference. Like I like to, some of the artists that would, either draw themselves or whatever. Like the Luis Royo, the Julie Bell, stuff like that. I really used to pay attention to, the way that they drew the characters, painted the characters, lit the characters up, and all that stuff. And I always thought it was interesting that they were so much into it that they would bring that forward and use themselves as reference models and all that.
Yeah.
So I would pay attention to that, not necessarily doing the penciling, but just on the artwork form on that. It was always pretty interesting to me.
Well, even looking at stage lighting, we can't help like an idea of like how shadows fall and things like that.
Yeah.
So I guess then, Dan, did you ever have a moment where like you got a quick bicep pump, looked at your arm like, oh, it does that, and draw that? You said you have history also drawing comics, or have you always used external reference, or have you looked at yourself?
At some of the competitions, in between, there's a prejudging in the afternoon, and there's an evening show. So the prejudging is that you're standing up with the other competitors. They're comparing you in the mandatory poses. So it's like, frontal bicep, front lat spread. They're comparing everyone. They're making most of the decisions on where everyone's going to place. In the evening show, you have a posing routine to music. So in between that time, there was a couple times where I said, let me build up some artistic reference because I'm, I starved myself. I'm in,
Dehydrated. Yeah.
Let me, make some artistic reference. But yeah, for the most part, trying to think, because again, I moved into mostly writing, and there's been a few times where I've sent things to an artist where I had a particular pose in mind, but for the most part, probably didn't get much of that. Didn't get utilized. I have to probably dig it up and send it to an artist if I have an idea that's going to fit any of that. But there were like reference books where they had people photographed in a whole bunch of different positions.
Yeah.
Before the internet, again, this was a big thing for artists, that they had these books and they had just, like someone in a pose, and just they would turn the camera a little bit so you'd get it in the angle that you wanted it. But I remember
there's a book of 1,000 faces, I think it's something like that, and it was just like one page with one person's head doing this, and then the next row is coming back like a little more angled.
Yeah.
I remember that's an actual book.
Yeah, and I remember though when I was going to the conventions with my art portfolio, the George Bridgman life drawing. That was what every comic artist seemed to be referring you to. George Bridgman's life drawing, or drawing anatomy. And, people, again, they were big, even if they were cheating the anatomy, they point people towards that to, because I guess back in the day, the Sal Buscema, John Buscema, all those artists were a little less stylized and a little more just like, let's get everything right. So,
correct.
So you had mentioned that you had started in comics at an early age and were creating up ideas for your characters very young. So then when you made that transition into pro fitness, were you already working in comics or trying to get your comics published, or what was that timeline like for you?
I was competing, and let's see, because did my first competition, I just snuck into the teenage division at 19, and then did the first show, and then competed pretty much each year, and at some point, I kept putting the comics on the back burner. I had my characters I was developing, started getting those convention sketches, but I had put off publishing because you really, when you're doing those competitions, there can be nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of training, the food preparation, you have to eat certain things, certain times, making it to the gym. So I had to take a break from that if I was going to start the publishing. Started the publishing, went back to the competition, went back and forth a few times.
Sure.
But I was pretty much in that little break the first time in getting the comics. I kind of got into a groove where even during the competitions, I would still be able to slowly get something done, maybe not publish as vigorously, but still get something done. And I guess I was getting both done for a while. Turned pro in the drug-free bodybuilding, and pretty much went into the World Championships and said, okay, I've done about everything that I'm going to do, and went back to just really aggressively publishing. And by then Kickstarter came around. And again, just like the bodybuilding, the comics is kind of a thing where it's, pretty consuming. So I don't think you can successfully do both at the same time. So I just, concentrated a bit more at the bodybuilding at certain points, but now just the publishing.
Sure, definitely. I guess the moral of our story here is for any younger readers who are looking, or listeners who are looking to get into comic creation, there's no reason why you shouldn't also pick up a barbell at the same time.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's incompatible, though, because sitting at that drawing table, it's very comforting to be eating like a sleeve of Oreos.
Oh, yeah.
And, just getting the work done. I don't want to, get up and go out and cook, so that is a sedentary thing. And working out is a whole different thing. But to keep your health up and to be able to do this long term, you will be better off and get more productivity done if you do get some type of exercise in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, the benefits to
It's
energy
real
levels.
easy.
Yeah. But I mean, if you do enjoy a
really
good sleeve of
easy.
Oreos, so yeah, if you do enjoy a good sleeve of Oreos, you can also just join me on the powerlifting side. Like Dirty Bulk is the name of the game.
There you go. There you go. Bench, squat, and deadlift.
Yeah. The part of the Coach Thailander's kind of fit, kind of fat crew. So now that we kind of learned more about your history, how you got into fitness, how you got into comics, all of that, we're gonna transition at this point to kind of allow you to pitch more on the comics you currently have out, what you have coming down the pipeline, why people should be reading you. However, before we do that, I have to ask, because I feel like it is a tradition in these kind of conversations. Did you make it out of your career without any chronic injuries? How's your back health?
Yeah, no. Knock on wood, which is desk is made of wood that I'm knocking on right now. Yeah, everything is going okay. I had leg day today. Did the squats, did the deadlifts. I used to deadlift on back day, but now I'm doing it for hamstrings. So,
Sure.
I could feel the shoulder. That was more from a high school wrestling injury.
Yeah.
So that I have to work around sometimes. Back is actually, it used to bother me sometimes, but when I started deadlifting regularly, I think it strengthened all the muscles around.
Having that tension on your spinatus actually, that keep everything in line and make sure that everything is attached and firing as it should.
Yeah. So I mean, I still haven't really gotten a good sumo deadlift, but I'll do a regular deadlift every leg workout pretty much.
Sure.
Yeah, hit the hamstrings. And I'll tell you, with the bodybuilding, and again, a drug-free guy, so there's not going to be any like crazy numbers. But I had a 20-year stretch of doing my last set of squats 315 for 20.
Yeah.
Okay, and even today, and most of them 315 for 15, and I say, that seems to like do a lot. Whereas I'll leg press if I have anything left over. You know what I mean? I'll do the leg press, but I'm just saying I can squeeze out whatever I can on the leg press, rather than just having to do those extra 5 on the squat and possibly passing out or something. I don't want to alarm anyone at the gym. So
we do have we have a question in chat actually from Roland Mann, not to cut you off. But kind of what we're talking about here about finding a healthy balance. Yes, are there any suggestions on how comic creators can be more physically active and healthy? Not necessarily bodybuilding, but just more being motivated to be more healthy.
I think fitness has to be habitual. Okay, so you just have to have a schedule. Okay, and again, when you're bodybuilding, it's going to be like chest and tries on this day, shoulders and calves on that day, quads and hams on this day. But even without that, if you're going to do treadmill, I wouldn't leave it to when I have the time. I would just say scheduling that, having a particular time of day or however many times per week, having a schedule is really what's going to help you out, because exercise is unpleasant. It's not really something that anyone, some people say they get the high, the endorphins or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean,
That's mostly smelling salts.
Yeah. I mean, however many years for me, I'm still feeling like there's a lot of work. But just knowing that you have to do it that day, that's what helps out. Because if you don't have it scheduled, you're going to be like, I'm running low on toothpaste. I better get to the supermarket and get it, because that's not painful. So why not do that instead of working out? So that's why I'm saying, if you just have it scheduled, you won't come up with something else like, oh, I got to clear room on my DVR. I'm not going to be able to tape Monday Night Raw tonight. If you have it scheduled, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I hop on the bike at home, or I go to the gym, do the treadmill, whatever you're going to do. As long as you have it scheduled, that's the only way that, it's going to get done.
Yeah. I'm kind of similar to points we've made in previous episodes about how you protect your creative time, is you have to protect that time. Set up, an hour or 90 minutes, whatever that is, that is your time. You tell people you're unavailable because that's what you have to do. And if you can get a buddy to help keep you accountable, having a buddy with a similar drive at the gym can help a lot. We have stories of, if you go into the gym and you're running like it's the full team, so you're running 5 deep, but you're going to be on bench for 4 hours, but you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah, no, that's especially for powerlifting. That's what you do, right? You concentrate on that bench, that deadlift, that squat.
Yeah. But,
at least bodybuilding, you get a little variety going.
Yeah,
you're supposed to hit those.
Yeah, having a buddy, having a coach, someone to help keep you accountable. That when you have the time to protect it, you're sharing it with someone, so you can both check in ahead of time. Like, hey, I'm ready to go. You're ready to go. That helps quite a bit. I found as well. Jose, David, how are your fitness routines before you get into Dan's pitch?
No, I'm sleeping, Tim. Stop waking me up.
No, it's same here. It's pretty horrible.
Okay.
The pretty much transferring from job 1 to this job 2 is, it's hard. But again, excuses, definitely excuses. I used to have points where I'd go into the gym and I'd pretty much spend 3-4 hours in the gym just daily, and it just.
I try to spend a couple of times a day, or not a day. I'm sorry, a couple times a week in the pool. And we have a pool, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Pool's great, good for joints.
But that's unfortunately the gym stuff's been a while.
All right. Well, hopefully this episode can serve to help motivate the members of the cast as well as listeners at home.
Well, that was kind of a big thing with me. It's like I was very interested on it too, because Dan, you're doing so much on the weightlifting and building side, and then you go into a field that's primarily mostly sitting in a chair. So there's a lot of motivation. I have to give you props for doing that, to get yourself out of that chair and doing the stuff. It really takes a lot of discipline. So
no, I appreciate you saying. It's just that it's a balancing act, I guess.
Yeah,
because one helps the other.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. And so, do you find that like on those, maybe not right after, but those days close to training, or like later in the day after training, or the day after training, you find that you're more energized and ready to be more creative? You find your brain's a little more active and firing?
Well, yeah, I'd say so. I mean, a lot of times I'll have a number of projects in the works. So, before the gym, just back and forth with, like I said, artists and clients now, as I said, with Thunderzone Studios, clients who I'm making their book. So, I'm doing a lot of like back and forth with them prior to the gym. And on the days where there's not as many people contacting me for that, I can be building a Kickstarter or, getting some of the other books prepared or writing scripts of my own. And then usually working out, having dinner, come back, and usually there's some messages that have accumulated since then. So in that way, it's, again, like it or not, I'm going to have the energy. But usually, the workout wakes you up a little bit and everything.
Yeah.
So able to get back to everybody and be creative again. But,
Definitely.
I mean, this May is doing it. Just like Roland, I'm sure, is just like you love the process of making comics.
Yeah.
Because we're certainly not doing it for the big bucks and the millions that are coming our way.
Wait, we're not?
Yeah, you'd be. Actually, Stan Lee had said, you want to know how you make $1 million in comics? Start with 2 million.
Yeah.
You're right.
But it's its own reward in that when that issue is completed and you get it in people's hands, you hear some feedback, you get it in your own hands, it's, very satisfying.
Definitely. Have you ever had one of those moments where you're mid-set and your subconscious is going, or maybe not necessarily like thinking so much at the moment, you're just kind of focusing on your breathing, and then all of a sudden that idea snaps in your head, you're like, shoot, I gotta take a note down. Something for a comic, or like a character development happens, something like you get like a plot point in your head.
I'm one of the few without a headset at the gym. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I go back to the day, unless you had a Walkman, you're not going to have anything. And I got used to the gym was a social place at that point.
Yeah.
Before everyone put in the headsets and went, into their own world. So yeah, I maybe not during a set. I've had it in between sets, and again, not keeping my phone with me. I'd have to go back to the locker and get the phone, put it in the notes, and then get back to what I'm doing. But usually that kind of switches off a little bit.
Okay.
It might be more of like a characteristic that someone is displaying that you say, that's a good characteristic for me to represent on someone in a comic.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay. Well, now we've taken about 50 some odd minutes to get to know you. Let's get into the comics you have out. So you kind of mentioned that you have Argo 5 is your big mainline title, or issue 45, looking at the future. Give us a rundown on that. What do you think is, what do you like about it the most? What do you think readers like about it the most? What the overall premise is? What people can expect to get out of it?
Well, I think I take it in a direction more towards some books that are like no longer around. Like I had mentioned how much I enjoyed the Elementals, and I did enjoy that Justice League International run with Justice League Europe. So there's a peppering of that type of flavor, and I like Love and Rockets, which is kind of like a bit outside of the superhero realm. So I try to like give it its own flavor, and beyond that, I try to keep it in the forefront of my mind that I cannot do what the big two are doing. If you're going to do what they're doing, or an homage to what they're doing, people already know the Avengers. They already like the Avengers, and the Avengers are already available to them. So doing a book in the style of the Avengers is not a way to go for an indie publisher. So yeah, I always try to come up with something, a twist that's going to take it outside of, hopefully, things that haven't been really overdone, touched upon so much in the course of superhero comics. So yeah, Argo 5, again, while I have those elements of kind of like those books I brought up, I'm always looking to have a twist in there, make it something that is giving the readers a unique experience.
Cool. Okay. And talk about some of your other items that might fall into the one-shot category, or aren't necessarily Argo 5, but are books that you've worked on that other readers can also pick up through Indie Planet.
Well, Sorority of Power was the next ongoing series. That, I think, 15 or 16 issues. I'm going to do a trade collection and put that on Kickstarter, the first 6 issues or so. And issue 16 I never released, so I'll probably fold that into that campaign. And Sorority of Power is basically like 3 sorority sisters and then 3 pledges who are trying to make it into the sorority, and it's a sorority for superheroines. So it's Super Gamma Mega, the sorority for superheroines. So basically you have the adventures where the 3 pledges are trying to impress the 3 sisters that are already in the sorority and become superheroes upon graduating. And then there was a bunch of whole one-shots of different superhero teams I had. Team North America, Death Squad, Havoc Patrol, the Paladins. So these are all, for some reason, I think I tend to like the team books. These are all pretty much team books because growing up, if you had a limited budget and you couldn't buy Superman, Batman, Flash, Green Lantern, you could buy Justice League and you'd have them all together.
Yeah.
And you'd see the more interesting to have a character interaction. So I always liked the team books, and in Argo Comics, it's mostly team books. But when I got into Thunderzone and publishing other people's work, I had decided to do some single characters, and the first of which I had revived public domain character Nature Boy. And I had brought him back as Nature Man. So partly because time had passed, and partly because I didn't think Nature Boy would make it without everyone immediately going, "Woo!" and going to that Ric
Yeah.
you know,
That's
Ric
fair.
Flair had stolen that by then. And I think, so I went into Nature Man, and is created by Jerry Siegel, Superman co-creator, and John Buscema. They had created Nature Boy, who had like 4 issues. And it was a really interesting character with like kind of like a pantheon of characters who gave him his powers. They weren't real. It wasn't like Shazam where they were real gods. They had like Gusto, King Gusto of the Winds, and just like, this made up pantheon. Queen Fiora, who gave him fire powers. So I made it so that those adventures did occur, and he is brought back into modern times. Again, being in suspended animation, kind of, so he's not quite old as he would be for a hero from the 1940s, but he has aged considerably, gray hair and everything, into Nature Man. And I bring in some other public domain characters into that as well. I have Big House Blues as part of Thunderzone, where it's pretty much a jail for supervillains. Okay, it's a mega prison for supervillains with superheroes as the corrections officers. So
nice.
Yeah, again, it's a twist I hadn't really seen, so I wanted to try that. Of course, Savage Dragon was a cop, and I had a background in law enforcement myself, but in doing so, I had a lot of run-ins with the corrections officers, and I was able to get a lot of information and research for that particular book. And then I have other upcoming books that I've created, but again, Thunderzone is a collaboration. So I have a number of books from other creators. And actually, again, we have a separate page for that on Indie Planet. So Thunderzone, Indie Planet, that web search will take you to the Thunderzone page on Indie Planet. We just have the first few issues. We're pretty much doing everything exclusively on Kickstarter now, but there's a sampling there for people to kind of discover what the books are about.
Very cool. So you say you're doing stuff exclusively on Kickstarter now. What does that mean for you going forward? Are you doing mostly just Kickstarters and then you're still looking at a place to put them afterwards, or is it unless you pre-order? What does that mean, and what does that look like?
Well, Argo 5 is still going through Indie Planet because again, after 44 issues, I don't feel like jumping into Kickstarter for number 45.
Sure.
I mean, the trades have been exclusively on Kickstarter, but I'm not doing. I've been doing more Thunderzone Kickstarters, and I do get inquiries about the trades, so I might do a general release for that.
Okay.
But I will then go into, like I said, the Thunderzone titles being on Kickstarter. Some of the, like Nature Man, Big House Blues, this book I'm doing, Sumo Boy, some of these were serialized in, you guys know Antarctic Press?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they had Exciting Comics, which serialized some of Nature Man, some of Big House Blues. Another book I had, Weirdo. Another book I have, Sumo Boy. Those haven't been released yet through Thunderzone. Originally, I had made those as full issues. They were chopped up a bit and put into Exciting Comics, which was great. I mean, they had covers, national exposure, everything like that. But artistically, I have them set up as full issues.
Yeah.
So releasing those now through Thunderzone gives me the satisfaction people being able to read those as they were originally intended, with the cliffhanger being after 22 pages or so, rather than an unnatural cliffhanger after page 8 or something.
Okay. How did that process with NR Comics come about? Did you approach them? Did they approach you? How was on the show, whenever we get a chance to talk about kind of the business of comics, we try to open that up a little bit, because not a lot of people go into the comics understand the business side of things. So whenever we get a chance, we want to kind of help crack the code for them. So how did that deal with NR come about, and what did negotiations look like? How did that deal look like for you? And is it ongoing? Did you cancel it? And how did you feel after kind of wrapping up that relationship?
Well, I guess throughout the years, when you talk about favorite artists and stuff like that, I really had enjoyed Ben Dunn's work. So in my forming of Argo Comics and chasing down favorite artists, I've had a number of convention, through the mail, done by Ben. But I guess just when he started up with the Exciting Comics and he kind of put out a submissions, directions for submissions, by then I had, again, a couple books that I was going to go into these comic collectives that didn't quite pan out. So I had completed issues and just pretty much submitted to him, and he accepted them. And again, it was fulfilling in the fact that I guess I had been buying Ninja High School for many, many years. Gold Digger since it began. That got up to issue 300. But yeah, 89, I bought the first issue of Ninja High School that wasn't the beginning of that, was the first one I had gotten. So again, it was a publisher that I had a long standing admiration for. And then I was in the process of moving from New York to Florida. So I kept submitting, and in the fact that Exciting Comics rotates different features in, we haven't ended anything with them. But, like I said, he's going to probably be just putting out the conclusions of those stories. I'm getting now a head start on the stuff that was already printed, and the fact that I wanted to be a team player there and not really print the stuff I was printing through them.
Sure.
And have some company loyalty to the point where I wasn't going to kickstart it and then have them publish it, for my own greed of, getting the first dollars. Because if you're going to work for a publisher, you got to kind of, be in for them. You can't just, what can you do for me?
Right.
In the world of indie publishing, you got to be a team player. And I find that even it's a good practice for artists. Because if you're going to just, throw up some art you're doing for a publisher and not be art for Silverline with the link to their Indie Planet store, they're paying you. I know it just seems like, yeah, me and Roland were just rich and, you know, have this money all stored in our yacht. So, you know, we're going to just keep throwing the dollars. You kind of have to help them help you. So by promoting them a little bit, they can get some sales coming in and be able to continue to buy art. Otherwise, there's that long list of publishers who, you know, it just wasn't happening and they had to pack it up. How many even indie creators with that one issue? And they saw that the money didn't roll in. You didn't build it and they would come. You know, I mean, it's rough out there. So all I'm saying is, you know, it's good for the artist, colorist to be, you know, at least mentioning the publisher when you're posting this rather than just having it as like an online portfolio to gain commissions and everything. And that's what I did for Anodic Press. I'm trying to push them because, you know, that the raising waters lifts all boats type of thing.
Yeah. It's kind of we've mentioned this before several times. Every guest also brings it up is, and you brought up earlier. You don't get into comics to make money. You get into comics because you like comics. It's very rare for a small publisher to be operating any sort of press at anything, you know, less than a gigantic loss. So you know that your publisher is probably out there. If they're getting any sort of sales, your publisher's out there fighting tooth and nail for your promotion. So it, you know, giving back in whatever you can also helps sell your book.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, if they're published in Marvel and DC, there's no shortage of, you know, singing that to the heavens. Oh, you know, look, my work is in Black Panther number 47. Look, everybody, I'm in Marvel. They're going to need your help too.
Yeah.
You should press for them. But that indie guy, he needs it a whole lot more.
Right.
You know, you're just like some indie work I've done. You know, it's like he's the one that needs you to be like, you know, the work I've done, you know, for Silverline. You know, sometimes I just see it's in the comments. That's where people are like, what book is this? You know, and they're like, oh, it's, you know, blah, 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 blah. You know, it's like, put it in the initial post.
Yeah. Read your posts, share with that. I always try to, if I'm linking back to my alert, link it through the publisher's page, their store page. So if someone, you know, wants to go somewhere else, they can just pick up and find another or artist they like. So at this time, I'll open up the floor here, kind of dominating the conversation, but I felt like there was a lot of questions that I had for Dan specifically, both being kind of writers that also enjoy picking up and putting down heavy things. So Jose and David, do you have any questions or things you want to discuss with the rest of today's time?
No, I'm good. You covered a lot. You definitely did. So a lot of the initial questions I had. So yeah.
Being a publisher and, you know, like I said, doing all your time at the gym and stuff like that, how do you break up your time, I guess, you know, because one of the biggest problems I have going out and doing any kind of physical anything is that I know I want to get back to my table and draw. You know what I mean? That's what I enjoy doing. That's what I love doing. That's everything that runs through my brain is eat breakfast and get to work. You know what I mean? How much time do you allot yourself to go and obviously, you know, it's different when you're, you know, working towards a competition, but you know what I mean? On any given day, how much time do you allot, you know, to get out there and get physical compared to working publishing stuff?
Yeah, it's pretty much, it should be 5 o'clock. Sometimes it becomes 6 o'clock because I'm, you know, trying to get stuff done with the comics. I'm at a point where I'm pretty much going daily, but again, I'm rotating different things in. So, Monday might be back and buys, Tuesday quads and hamstrings, Wednesday chest and tries, Thursday cardio, Friday calves and shoulders, Saturday cardio, Sunday optional cardio. So it's just what I said before, habitual, just makes it so that that's that time. I'm going to go at that time. I'm on a roll sometimes, or I'm trying to go back and forth with revising a script and everything, and I just have to put it off until I get back. But that's again why 5 o'clock most often becomes 6 o'clock, is that I'm, getting involved in some comic making thing. But beyond the working out and the comics, I'm a little bit of a sneakerhead, and I can't wear any kicks at home. So I guess it's motivation to get up and get to the gym, because not so much on cardio days. Can't really do that in the Jordans or anything. But,
Right.
I get to, have a little fun with that, picking out a pair of sneakers. And actually,
I noticed the boxes on your shelf. For me, I looked at those and instantly thought, oh, art supplies.
yeah, no, I do have art supplies. That's in a separate cabinet here and everything. But yeah, the sneakers, I don't know why I got wrapped up in that, but I somehow did. I caught the fever. And actually, though, like I'm saying, quads and hamstrings, that's not a day for Jordan. You don't want to be like Mike on a big day. Mike didn't have
Right.
crazy quads or anything. So a lot of times that's Converse. As you know, a lot of powerlifters will hit with the Converse. Today I tried a pair that I had sitting for who knows how long, Rider Wear. I don't know if you ever heard of that one, Tim. Rider Wear was like after Atomics fell out of fashion, Rider Wear became a big thing. They had Kai Green and Big Ramy sponsoring them, and I bought a pair and just never got around to using it, so I broke those out today. And squat and deadlift got the usual numbers, but I don't know if I might prefer the Converse.
Yeah, just the flat foot. I don't do this at home. It's second only to lifting barefoot.
I can't do the barefoot thing.
Yeah, you always have to give the disclaimer on that. It's like you will see sometimes people end up breaking a toe because they're lifting barefoot and the plate gets mishandled. But yeah, the controlled environment with several spotters, but don't do it at home. But yeah, just having that flat foot pressure on the board for deads especially. But
and I do have like sleeves I wear on the shins when I do the deadlifts, because I'm not trying to have those deadlift scars.
Right.
Where you have this long scar from the bar, deadlifting, pulling up from the ground. I've seen a lot of guys in my old gym that these long scars on their shins.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'll buy a pair of, it takes a little time, get the shoes off, put the shin guards on. And
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is I need to tell people that the scars on my shins and whatnot are from deadlifting, right? They're not. They're all from skateboarding. But
I feel like skateboarding is just as impressive, right?
They have a whole skateboarding division, Nike. Nike SB.
Right.
Blazers are big, I think.
Yeah. So you don't just collect sneaks, it sounds like. You also collect kind of skate shoes as well as lifting shoes. Is that right? You have kind of a wide variety of what you're collecting in terms of sneakers?
Yeah, I mean, chest and tries and back and buys, you can pretty much wear anything. That's where the maybe Jordans or Yeezys or, whatever, Adidas. But then, leg day, you got to have a flat foot, like you said, so Converse. Calves, I even have to put on a pair of wrestling shoes.
Yeah.
You just want that mobility, and there's no support. So I do calves and shoulders on one day, and I bring a change of sneakers. I get out of the wrestling shoes and onto a pair of whatever, the shoulders, it doesn't really matter. And then cardio, I have running shoes. I don't really run, but I'll use those for walking on the treadmill. A lot of times I'll do step mill, which, then it doesn't really matter what you wear.
Yeah. So how often are you investing in your sneaker collection? Do you buy once a year, or are you like a once a quarter kind of guy? What's your how often are you looking at StockX or like the other collection sites and picking up something?
It's probably, unfortunately, at least monthly.
Okay.
If not multiple times in a month.
Sure.
So it's out of control. The long boxes have taken over for quite some time because I don't read digital comics. I read physical comics.
Yeah.
So the long boxes are just like completely out of control. And now the sneaker boxes have, made their claim.
Yeah.
A good amount of area. It's. I try to. Again, I don't buy to resell. I'm not down for that. Like you mentioned, StockX. A lot of times, I'm not really using that because that's just some guy who he bought it.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be another middleman. The company,
Right.
to me, not the company you buy it for. So there's another markup for me. So I can't really encourage the resellers. If they're going to resell something below retail on like eBay or something, and it's new, unworn with the box, then maybe I'll go there. But
I mostly order because I'm cheap, so I'm looking for the below value, lightly worn.
yeah, I mean, there's always sneaker sales.
Yeah.
Nike, Adidas are always running sales. So I'm not like a hype beast that I have to have the craziest shoe that no one can get. I just wear what I like, if it's widely available or not. I mean, the sneakers app, every week they have new sneakers coming out. And, at this point, I just going to really have to like that shoe to get it.
Right.
Because at this point, I can't, rotate in through what I have on sneakers.
There you go. So kind of what piecing together is that you seem like a respectful, kind of put together, humble guy, but in the gym you're doing the quiet mog. You're doing 315 for volume, wearing designer sneakers.
Yeah, no, like I said, that's going to be in Converse.
Yeah.
Converse, one designer about Converse.
Yeah.
Those Chuck Taylors, you're not winning any fair deals with that. But I'm benching. I might be, wearing some, nice Jordan 1s or whatever, and just hoping that no one walks by too close.
Right.
Because, things can go awry in the gym where sneakers get stepped on. But I mean, the Muscle magazines is the only collectible that has stopped now because they stopped publishing them.
Yeah.
So whatever bins of magazines I have, that is at least static.
Mm-hmm.
They keep making comics and they keep making sneakers. So, and here in Florida now, there's no basements in my area.
Nope.
Yeah, back in Long Island, had the basement, had an attic. This I have, somewhat unfinished attic that you really can't use for a lot of storage, people are, space is tighter. So that's why,
Very
again,
true.
I don't resell sneakers, but I will put on some pairs that I'm not using
Yeah.
up on eBay just to like make space.
Sure. I'm sure they also make great conversation pieces.
Sure, there's
Yeah.
some sneakerheads,
Yeah.
There's these videos all about comics. You see all these videos. I have a sneaker channel. I don't put anything on there, but those videos get more hits than my videos about comics.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those fans are just more rabid. And I'm talking indie comics. So I'm not, there's enough videos out there telling you what's going on with the, the big companies. So I'm hitting indie
Yeah.
comics. So that's, I'm not too interested in monetizing. So I'm not worried about that. But indie comic channel versus sneaker channel, I don't do anything with, gets more views.
Yeah. That sounds about right.
What do you do?
Yeah. Very cool. Okay. Well, we are wrapping up on time here. So, Dan, where can people follow you? What do they have to look forward? What do they have to look forward to coming from you down the pipeline here?
You can follow me on social medias, X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. All those have Argo Comics. My name on the screen there, Dan Sehn. I'm on Facebook. I have that account as well. And like I said, Indie Planet, searching Indie Planet Argo Comics or Indie Planet Thunderzone will get you books from either of those. And what I have on the pipeline is, when I said Thunderzone is a shared universe, we have a book, Thunder Guard. That's the next Kickstarter that we're going to be running, where we have characters from 7 different creators as a team. And that book is completed, so people won't be gambling. They'll be able to back that. And I'm going to have a tier where people can get their character into Thunder Guard #2.
That's
So,
cool.
yeah, again, I have a pretty solid track record, so people can, pledge to that type of thing, knowing that that book will come out. And, you can get your character published, kind of like secure a copyright in that respect. And it's a different writing challenge to have other people's characters in the book. But you'll see in Thunderzone, or rather Thunder Guard, #1, that's just what occurred. And I think it turned out well.
Very cool. Okay, well, this has been That Silverline Show on Tuesday. If you are listening to us after the fact on any podcast service around the world and want to join the conversation live like others have today, head on over to youtube.com or twitch.com/Silverline Comics and give us a subscribe or follow. You'll be notified when we go live, and you can join us for the conversation. Or you can ask us questions that we'll get to at the end of the show usually. Head over to silverlinecomics.com and buy yourself some merch. And, of course, check out Dan Sehn on all of his social medias. Look up Argo Comics, look up Thunderzone, get yourself some dope comics today. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Dan. Normally, when we end the show, we'll run a brief outro, and we'll get pushed back to something like a green room, or if you want to join us for kind of our cool down after the show, where we just kind of hang out for a little bit, you're welcome to. If you have to get going, that's understandable. But before we end it, we have to ask you, can we get you to say, make mine Silverline?
Ever since, again, the original Cat and Mouse and Silver Storm, all these books way back, I've been making mine Silverline a lot longer than many have. So yes, Silverline, and I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Awesome. It's been great talking
Yeah,
to
thank
you.
you for coming.
We'll be back in the cool down room in a second. All right. And we'll catch all of you all next week, same time, same channel. Make sure to check out Wednesday Wham and Silver Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern on those respective days.
Hey, I'm G-Rod. Make mine Silverline. You heard me.